Jonathan Lee Riches Investigates. I am covering the tragedy out of Moscow, Idaho. Let's talk about the allegations that are being circulated on the internet that Bryan Kohberger was in the Mad Greek restaurant in Moscow, Idaho. There is a publication called People Magazine and a reporter with People Magazine named Stephen Helling, who wrote an article and said that Bryan Kohberger, according to a ex-employee that was not named, went inside the Mad Greek 2 times and ordered a vegan meals circulating all over the internet. Since the People Magazine article, other media outlets piggyback that, and then it spreads. Bryan Kohberger in the Mad Greek, where 2 of the victims worked, Xana and Madison. But Mad Greek came out with a statement and said, that's not true. Check it out. This is the message that the Mad Greek posted on their Facebook page. The news media should really do their due diligence before running a story with completely fabricated information. This will be my only response to this story from People. It is not true. This person who wants their 5 minutes of fame has now caused a whole bunch of extra work for myself and the investigators. I have also not forbidden employees from speaking to reporters. We all decided collectively to support the families and not share anything that could potentially harm the investigation or cause the families more stress. To all the media reporters, internet sleuths, etc., please allow us to grieve the loss of our friends and co-workers. This has been incredibly hard for us. With our phones ringing off the hook, reporters banging on my door at my private residence and hunting down employees, as well as showing up constantly at the restaurant, we have not been afforded the time to grieve. Please stop calling, messaging, knocking, and showing up. I personally will not be doing any interviews or entertaining wild accusations at this time. My employees also feel the same. To all the others, please don't believe everything you read. It's not coming from the courts or the police. Wait until it does or doesn't before judging. To everyone who has supported myself, my family, my employees, thank you. Your kind words and support help us get through each day while we navigate these unknown times. Respectfully, Jackie Fisher, Mad Greek. So she's calling out people. So, was Bryan Kohberger in Mad Greek or not? Let's talk about the People Magazine reporter, Stephen Helling. I've been reviewing Stephen Helling's articles that he's been writing about the Moscow case, Idaho 4. He's written quite a few. But I want to show you something in each of the articles that he has written in reference to the Moscow case. Check it out. In this People Magazine article written by Steve Helling, accused Idaho killer Bryan Kohberger repeatedly messaged one of the victims on Instagram. Source: he was persistent and investigated. Source on the case tells People Magazine. 2 weeks before the slayings of 4 University of Idaho students last November, the man now accused of killing them sent a series of messages to one of the victims on Instagram. An investigator familiar with the case tells People. In late October, an account that authorities belonged to Bryan Kohberger sent a greeting to one of the female victims. The source says when he didn't get a reply, he sent several more messages to her. He slid into one of the girl's DMs several times, but she didn't respond. The source tells People Magazine. Basically, it was just him saying, "Hey, how are you?" But he did it again and again. So a source. And in this People Magazine article written by Steve Helling, Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger visited restaurant where 2 victims worked at least twice before killings. According to a former employee at the Mad Greek restaurant in Moscow, Idaho, Bryan Kohberger came in at least twice to grab
vegan pizza. In the weeks before the slayings of 4 University of Idaho students last November, the man now accused of killing them allegedly ate at the restaurant where the 2 victims worked. According to a former employee at the Mad Greek restaurant, Bryan Kohberger came in at least twice to grab vegan pizza. 2 of the victims, Maddie and Xana, were servers at the restaurant. People has also confirmed via an investigator familiar with the case that law enforcement is aware of the restaurant's visits and that investigators have interviewed employees and owners of the Mad Greek. They have also collected video from the restaurant and surrounding businesses. The former employee tells people that there was nothing suspicious about Kohberger's visits to the Mad Greek, and that he only stood out because he had a particular order, a strict vegan. Kohberger would check to make sure that his food had not come into contact with animal products. In this People magazine article written by Steve Helling, Idaho murder suspect spoke about slain students during extradition. It's really sad what happened to them. Bryan Kohberger, 28, was arrested in Pennsylvania in connection with the killings of Ethan Chapin, Xana, Madison, Kaylee. Bryan Kohberger has largely remained silent after he was charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students, but he made small talk with officers while he was being extradited from his home in Pennsylvania and then booked into the Latah County Jail. He seemed really nervous. A police source who was involved in the process tells People he was narrating to himself everything that was happening. At one point he was saying something like to himself, "I'm fine, this is okay." Like he was reassuring himself that his whole thing wasn't awful. Kohberger was read his Miranda rights during his arrest and cannot be questioned about the case without an attorney present. He didn't speak directly to officers about the case, but the police source says that he made an offhand comment about it. He did say it's really sad what happened to them, but he didn't say anything more. The source says. He's smarter than that. So this article was written by Steve Helling of People magazine.
Do you see something there? Because I do. Every single article that he's written about the Idaho case, he cites sources, but he will not name the sources. 2 articles that he's written, 2 articles, are bombshell articles where it's trying to paint Bryan trying to paint a picture of Bryan directly connected with the victims. One article Stephen Helling wrote says that Bryan slid into the DM of one of the victims on Instagram, and then the Mad Greek. And then another article, Bryan was on a plane and was talking about the victims according to a law enforcement source, but doesn't ever reveal the sources. This Helling reporter for People magazine, he posts on his social media that he's from Florida. How does he get all this information? How does he get all this information? I'm questioning it, and so should you. Because every article that he writes, then other media outlets piggyback that, and then it spreads. There's no evidence at this time that police have revealed tying Bryan Kohberger to the victims at all. But this People magazine reporter, Stephen Helling, wants you to think there's a connection by posting and creating these articles without revealing the source. What's your thoughts on that? Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button. Mad Greek owner says, it's not true. Bryan was never in here. So who is the ex-employee? If there's an ex-employee, according to Stephen Helling of People magazine, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? I don't think it's anyone. Personally, I don't think it's anyone. I think it was a complete lie. Fake news. Let me know what you think. Everyone be safe. God bless. Say no to, let me tell you something. I'm going to get my car because it's kind of cold here. If this Helling guy made these stories up, shame on him. Shame on him, because you are victimizing the 4 victims' families by creating fake news stories for clicks and views purposely. And there's a difference between people on YouTube speculating about the case and putting out speculation. There's a big difference between that and someone creating fake news, purposely, willfully and knowingly putting out fake information, kind of like Joseph Morris. Remember Joseph Morris? A fake recording. Well, now we got at least two articles written by Stephen Helling that I feel is fake. And I think it causes serious damage, especially if you're claiming in an article that, just like the Mad Greek said, it's causing them, when you say Bryan Kohberger was in there and creating a story, then the Mad Greek gets pounded with phone calls and unnecessary drama. Reveal your sources. And I say this directly towards Stephen. So what do you think? We'll talk soon. God bless. Justice for the victims and their families.